You're listening to Fulfilling Career, Happy Life, the podcast for accomplished professionals who want to identify what's next in their career, then make it happen without compromising what matters most. I'm your host, RANDI Roberts, an executive and career life coach, and I'm glad you're here. If you want to feel more energized about your work again, this show is for you. So let's get into it. Hi, Stephanie. Good to see you today. I know that the stage that you're in is you've come to the end of a planned break, hiatus, sabbatical, whatever you want to call it in your career. Mm-hmm. And now you're at the point where you're leaning into finding the next thing. So let's just touch base about, where you are and what your thinking is.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. So tell me, what are you looking for? Where are you even in that thought process?
Well, I don't want to say nowhere, but I'm struggling. I'm struggling to figure out what I want to do. Partially because the way I feel at this stage in my career, partially because of reactions maybe that I've gotten from others who have taken a look at my resume in a couple of interviews that I've had. I think that I've moved away from being a technical expert in my career, right? So I think as you move into more senior positions and management position, right, you move away from perhaps the technical area, right? So for me, it was market research, right? Both US, global, and I've moved away from that 10 years ago to more generalist positions and management positions. And so, the question is, do I want to go back to those more technical positions, even at a lower level, honestly? Mm-hmm. Do I want to go back to a management position? Do I want to go back to my latest experience, which was more in data governance, knowing that, it would really, I think, keep me in a very niche area, which I wanted to get out of at some point. And so, that's, I don't know, I'm trying to think about, what is it that I like the most in the position that I've had, and what I didn't like as much, to try to shape the thinking. But then I was kind of confronted with a couple of people reaction, right? So there was a company who contacted me out of nowhere to interview, and I went through like 5 interviews with them. And it was interesting to see their reaction to my resume, because they kind of highlighted something that I had not noticed, right? They kind of pointed the fact that, I've a very diversified experience where, I have a learning mindset, right? So I like doing new things and learning new things and asking a lot of questions, right? So that also partially explained, my moves in my careers, because I like doing other things. And that's why I did not stay a technical expert. I moved around and done other things. But that also, so it was interesting for them, because they were looking, they're building a brand new company. So they're interested in a profile where people have touched many things, right? So, because when you're in a large company, you're more in a box, right? Smaller companies, yes, you have to do many things, wear many hats, right? Which kind of reminds me of a company I was working on 20 years ago. I had a lot of fun with that. So I forgot, I have that very diversified experience. Mm-hmm. And I feel I could leverage that. At the same time, I'm like, do I just want to go back and do market research, Sure. Because that's always in demand. But then when I talked to a headhunter, she was like, well, your market research experience dates back to 10 years ago. That's too old. I'm like, it's like riding a bicycle. It's not like you forget, right? So
it's interesting, Stephanie, because there's a lot here in what you've said. The first step for you in this search really is crystallizing, getting really clear on what it is you want to do. And you have several, diverse options. Do you want to stay in the data governance piece that you've been doing most recently? Do you want to be in a management or leadership role? Or do you want to go back, as you said, a lower level to be in the more technical space and a little more focused? A couple of other things you said were, one, and this is just a minor point, but you said somebody pointed out something to you in your resume that you hadn't considered. That just shows the value of getting another set of eyes on it, so that those things come out. So that's really helpful. But something you said too that I don't want us to lose is you expressed some excitement when you talked about a small company that you worked with because you get to do a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And sometimes like what sparks for you and what excites you is something to pay attention to because it may, the things you just said, doing a lot of different things and stuff may fit you at this point. So we can park that for now, but I don't want to lose it.
Yeah. Well, I've been thinking about it. I mean, that was part of the thinking, I've worked mostly in big pharma, and probably the time I had the most fun in my career, and we talked about that actually during those interviews I had recently, is probably when I used to work at Sanofi, but Sanofi before the merger with Aventis, right? It was like such a small company based in New York. We could all fit in a bar. And I had the best time because, again, you could wear many hats, you could help each other, you could touch a lot of things and learn a lot of things. There was a lot of freedom to, create and get out of the box. And I think, once you move to bigger companies, you're put in a box. You do that job, and depending on the culture of the company, people keep you in that box, right? Yeah. Because everybody kind of, is fighting for their box, let's just say. So, I reflect upon that time where I think that's the best time I've had. As a matter of fact, I've kept relationship with the people I was working with during that time because we had such fun building, that company at that time.
And you all fit in a bar?
Yeah, we all fit in a bar. The president would come. Yeah, it was the best time. We had a lot of fun. So I do think, is it the time for me maybe to go to a smaller company? I mean, a lot of them are in Boston, right? So that's kind of the problem I had with those interviews I did. The company was based in Boston. And, I have to kind of also balance the fact that, I have a family who needs attention, right? I mean, I did that career break mainly for family members, to take care of family members. Sure. So I can't lose that, I can't go back to commuting to Boston, from Jersey. Yeah. So I have to find something that works for me professionally and for my family, many people. And so, I'm thinking, smaller company, based in Jersey. And I've been thinking, do I work for them directly or do I go back on the vendor side? And, I would love to maybe do some, be like a project manager who handles a lot of programs for the smaller companies,
What is it? What, this is sort of the first specific role that you've mentioned. And what is it about being a project manager at a smaller company that's appealing to you?
Shaping things, planning things. I mean, I've been thinking in terms of skills, what I enjoy, what I'm good at. So I think my ex-manager would always say I'm very good at anticipating things. Issues in advance, planning for things, structuring, organizing, connecting the dots. My manager before that thought I was great with connecting the dots. And you knew him, by the way. So connecting the dots, planning, anticipating, bringing people together, try to find solutions together as a group. I
So
really
working on a team is important to you also.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, that came out quite clearly also, when I did the sales rotation and realized, it was interesting because what was eye-opening to me, even though I had been in pharma for, more than 15 years at that point, 20, how lonely the job of a sales rep is. You're pretty much out there alone all day, except for, the interactions with your customers, but you don't have that family that, you have in a headquarter office where you work with people, alongside people. I mean, I know it's a little different now. You're not always in an office, but you can be, seeing people on Zoom or Teams, right? There's a sense of, community, family, you work with people.
Yes.
So I know I enjoyed that. Like, I wouldn't go back and be like, out there alone.
Yeah. No, but I think it's great. You just in the course of this brief conversation we've had so far, you've noted a lot of elements of a job that would be the best situation for you. Excuse me. Working on a team, being in a situation where you can shape things, connect the dots, be planning and anticipating issues. It sounds like a small company may be appealing to you because that's a place that you could more likely wear multiple hats and sort of play out of your lane with an eye towards solving problems and things like that. And I loved what you said about it's really important for your family that you're close to home. Like, these things are important no matter how great the job is. If you're making big sacrifices in other important areas of your life, it's a short-lived joy. Truly. The thing that I will point out, though, like from talking to a lot of clients and just reading about what's going on out there, there are more and more companies that are open to remote working arrangements, especially smaller companies. So I wouldn't necessarily assume that that's a deal breaker. It's just a couple questions to ask to see if it passes that hurdle.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I do see remote work. I mean, I've been thinking about that. Do I want to go to a full-time remote job or more hybrid, right? Because thinking about my experience being a manager and hiring in my latest role and having to train people for extended period of time, bringing them on board, it is hard to bring people to a new company, like fully remotely. It doesn't give them a sense of like the company culture, the department culture. Yes, you can see them on Zoom, but it's different to be in an office and experience, the group culture. So I kind of feel like hybrid would be ideal if I started a company where I've never worked before.
Sure. Yeah. And getting a sense of the company culture, you get some sense during the interview process, but you don't fully know until you're immersed in it. And as we saw during COVID, having no contact at all can make that really tough.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. You can do as many happy hours on Teams or Zoom as you want. It's still not the same.
Yeah.
As getting people together, right?
One of my clients said to me yesterday, I want it to be important what the back of my hair looks like. And that was her way of saying she wanted to be with 3-dimensional people. It was good.
That's true.
Okay. So a hybrid working relationship may be best, but knowing some of your priorities, I'm guessing where you have a lot of flexibility to decide when and how much you're in.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But you see, the difficulty that I have, right, is all the things we've talked so far. If you talk to somebody from your network and they say, what are you looking for? People are expecting you to say, I'm looking for a market research job. I'm looking for a marketing job. I'm looking for a sales job, very like precise, boxed, And for me, I'm thinking more of skills I've acquired, like we just discussed, and skills that I can transfer into a position that maybe I haven't done before, but I can, apply my skills. So people don't want to hear, well, I'm looking for something where, I can apply my planning skills, my, connecting the dots skills, yes, the expertise maybe I have built in specific technical area, but, all these other skills, my analytical skills, it doesn't make people feel comfortable to hear that, because they're like, well, I don't know what you're looking for.
Yeah. And I think many times you're right, Stephanie. What I have seen with other clients, and even in my own experience working for big pharma and small companies, it depends on who you're speaking to. And very often, this is a generality, but very often that perspective of which box do you fit in is from folks that are in a big company where people fit in boxes. Whereas if you're talking to people who are in smaller companies, very often they're looking for somebody who doesn't need a box, because I can't tell you how often someone will interview for a certain position and they may say, actually, we have this other role that's coming up I think might be a good fit for you here and there. Like, they're looking for that. And so to some extent, I think it's in how you tell your story.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be like the skills that you've mentioned. Here's what I really love to do. Here's where I really add value. That could apply to a position like a project manager. Those, you may have a couple of examples, but many times those skills apply in different areas within different companies. And, it's really easy for me to say, if you're talking to the people you want to be talking to, that's the conversation they want to have. But that's very black and white, and it's not always that way.
Yeah, and I think I have to keep like an open mind too, because, it's funny connecting back to like a couple of old friends from way back who have left, big pharma to build their own consultancy practices. They built their business in areas that they didn't think they would. It's like people who contacted them and said, I think you would be great at that based on me working with you in the past. So, one built a coaching business, one built, she was a global marketing director, but the type of project she's doing is not specifically in that immediate area. So I have to keep an open mind also to where people, could see me leverage those skills, which,
yes.
And that could apply to a role that I'm not immediately targeting, which is why it was interesting that last company who contacted me, it was for a role that I would have never thought of applying for a role like this, because I've never done it, right? But they were like, no, we're looking for like a profile that's very, diversified like yours, because this person has to wear different hats, and, your varied experience could be helpful for that. So that was interesting to see that. And I see that, like I said, in those connections I've talked to. So I need to keep reminding myself also that, there will be, like you said, those people who could also open doors for things that I'm not considering.
Yeah. And
which is intriguing.
What you're saying is like this, I think you may be closer to knowing what you want than you think, if you're looking through the window of what are the skills and be open to how it can apply. And there's some element of, then it's how do you tell your story? And we can talk about that. But then it's also, almost the thinking that people, I haven't seen it as much, but people used to have, they would have different versions of their resume based on what kinds of jobs they were applying for. And it's almost that thinking in terms of targeting your message to who you're speaking to.
Mm-hmm.
And an extension of that thought is, once you get really clear on what you want, that guides you to who you want to be speaking to.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, nothing you have said says you want to go back to big pharma. Now, when I say that, what's your reaction? Like, how do you feel about that?
Ambiguous about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I'm less excited about being put in a box for a specific role than actually exploring a place where I can continue to learn, like leverage my varied experience and continue to learn outside of being put in a box.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not as exciting,
Okay.
for sure.
And I don't mean to suggest that that would be bad. I think it's a question of, there are times when you need a job, and that's the job, and that's the message you send, is this is the job I want, and here's how my skills and experience fit and apply. You're in a situation where you've just taken this mid-career break and are looking to be very purposeful and make sure that what you go into next fits who you are, who you want to be, how you want to live your life. And so that feels more aligned to telling this, I'll call it, more creative story.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, when I think about it, right, there's just so many people leaving big pharma at this mid stage of their career to go to small, a lot of biotechs, right? Like, and at all levels. I mean, you see it like, mid-level all the way to president, right? They all leave and go to smaller companies, right? And build businesses from scratch. It's an interesting trend. So it's not unusual, I think, for me to think that way.
It's not unusual at all. I see it a lot. And there's a push and a pull. The smaller companies very much want people with big company experience because they sort of know how to do it successfully. And if you also have that sort of scrappy, I want to keep learning, I want to mold with the situation nature, that can be a really good fit. So the small companies are pulling people with that background, and people who have spent a lot of time in big pharma may need something that's refreshing.
Right.
Get a different perspective. So,
yeah, you see that move, and then you see also people just doing consulting, right? Leveraging their technical skills and do consulting. And I don't think I want to go that way.
Why?
Just because I think it might be too lonely. Okay. Like, I think I need to be part of a group, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. And it's important for you to be clear on. And I like the way you're thinking about it. It's bigger than, I don't think I want consulting. It's here's why. And basically what that says is you want to play in a lane that involves working on a team. That can look like a lot of different things, but sort of having made that ideal choice, that helps you narrow down. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if there's definitely one thing that I miss the most about my last job, it's that sense of family. And it's the same thing I had when I had that career with Sanofi at the beginning. When Sanofi was small, it's, we were all really working together to build something that was really exciting. And in my last job, I felt like we were all helping each other towards making clients happy. So, there was a lot of collaboration, a lot of exchanges, a lot of building solutions together. I really like that. Like, I get excited thinking about it. So I want to find that.
Okay. And it's important to know that, because first of all, that's going to lead you to something that's going to be fulfilling, but also that's how you're going to tell your story most effectively and interview most effectively. Your voice just changed when you talked about working on a team. Yeah. I mean, you get me thinking, right? I think when I really think about it, I get the most excited about working on a team where there is a lot of collaboration, supporting smaller type of clients, touching a lot of areas. So yeah, I probably need to target that, either working for a smaller biotech or pharma company, or working on the vendor side where I would manage projects for those smaller companies and can wear, more hats. It's interesting. Like, one of the companies who HR manager who contacted me for a job recently, he made an interesting
reflection, and maybe I need to look into that. Because again, looking at my resume, he was surprised that I did not go for a project management certification. He was like, with your kind of background, you might want to explore getting certified in project management. And maybe that would actually fit nicely with what I'm looking for, especially if I go back on the vendor side to do project management for smaller companies.
Mm-hmm.
I had never thought about it. I thought that was unexpected, and maybe I need to look into it. Maybe that would also help me. I don't know.
Yeah. And if you're particularly interested in a project management position and it meets all, sort of ticks the boxes that you've looked at so far, that would be something to look into. My suggestion is, that's one data point. I don't know if that's right or wrong. It may be worth asking a few more people and then look into it and see what you think.
Right.
Doing something like a certification or a new learning can help to sort of put a bow on the sabbatical and help you talk about, why are you still so current, and what are you doing to prepare yourself for the next thing, especially if it's a change. So I can't say whether that project management certification is right for you or not, but sometimes doing something like that can really refresh things and recharge and help your story.
Yeah. Actually, I can think about two people to reach out to kind of further investigate that. Somebody who was mentioned to me recently that I used to work with in a prior company, who was a project management specialist. So I've been thinking about reaching out to kind of explore that. And then somebody that I was not working directly with in another company who had that kind of job, and just reaching out to kind of understand a little bit better what he was doing exactly, and learn a bit more about from his perspective.
Sure.
So I've had those two names on the list. Like, maybe it's worth connecting. I don't know if they would be responsive to me reaching out, but hey, I don't have anything to lose by connecting.
The only way to know is to try. Okay,
Yeah.
So you've had those two names on your list for a little while. Are you ready to commit to taking action on that?
Yeah, no, I think I should. Because you're right. I need to talk to more people before, investing. Because I think those project management certification, I think they cost money. So
Probably.
Yeah.
Okay. So when will you do those two outreach efforts? How are you going to call them? Or are you going to email them? What feels right?
I'm probably going to message them on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Because I know they're there. Though I think a friend of mine gave me one of their phone numbers. So maybe I'll send a text to one of them.
Okay. I mean, that is more direct than LinkedIn. And some people don't check LinkedIn regularly. So if you go through LinkedIn and don't hear back, don't make it mean anything. They may just not have seen your message.
Yeah. And people are busy.
For sure. Okay. So when will you do that?
I'll do that by the end of next week.
Okay. Great. What might get in your way?
Of specifically reaching out to those people?
Yeah, because you've identified that as a great next step, but, gather some information.
What might go in my negative thinking?
So your own mindset?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would that be like? Like, what kind of negative thinking might get in the way of that?
Well, I think, I mean, it goes back to, how do you leverage your network, right? Like, are people going to be responsive? Are they not? But like you said, you can always reach, and if they don't respond, they don't, right? But so that would be the only, reluctance.
Okay.
I would say.
Okay. how have you gotten past that in the past? You've decided reaching out to these two people makes sense. You've decided how you're going to do that. You want to do that by the end of next week. If those thoughts sort of come in to, derail you, how have you moved forward in the face of that in the past?
Well, I think I need to put my goals on paper. So I think, I love lists, and I love...
Me too.
I have so many lists, and I like completing, my goal list. So I think as long as I put it in writing with a deadline, I think I'll do it.
Okay, That's great. So, my next question is going to be, when are you going to put it in writing with the deadline?
Well, I just did.
I'm sorry?
I just did.
Beautiful.
It's on paper right here.
Okay, very good. So you've committed to doing it. Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. That's the first step, and that's where it starts. And I think that maybe what we should talk about next time is how you want to use your network, because I am a big believer, based on what I've seen in my clients and how this process works. I'm a big believer that your network is everything in terms of getting your resume seen, getting to talk to the right people. And you've worked in a number of companies. You have a good network. So I think it would be worth, take these steps that we just talked about. And the next time, if it's feeling important to you, we can talk about a strategy for how you use your network.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. Because I've been struggling with that. And then I read more and more articles about it that, confuse me, I would say. So
okay. And it's possible to take a very strategic approach to that, Stephanie. A couple of thoughts. Between the time that we, between now and when we see each other again, I want to send you a link to one of my podcast episodes where we talk about how to use your network. I have a couple resources I'll send you, and you can take a look at those. And then we can talk about it the next time. Sound good? Okay, let me just make a note to send you those things. All right, let's take out our calendars and set up our next appointment.
Thanks so much for listening to Fulfilling Career, Happy Life. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe, follow, rate, and review. Do all the things to show your support for this podcast. It helps other professionals who want to feel more energized about their work again find us. And if you want to take this thinking further, please follow me on LinkedIn, where I share content on a regular basis. You can also get on my email list by downloading the Career Satisfaction Assessment or through my website. All these links are in the show notes. Thanks again for tuning in. I truly appreciate that you make the time for yourself to listen to the show. See you next week.